$7.6 million per year of annual occupancy cost for the part that it'll retain. Of course, the number is completely unknown today, so it was up to $7.6 million. And then importantly, the appraisal and the property assessment report that we got last week on the building that Metro will retain indicates that there could be somewhere between $6 and $13 million of what the appraisal calls stabilization cost and what the property assessment report called build-out cost. But they both roughly aligned. The appraisal referred to a little more than $12 million, and the property assessment report indicated there was $6 to $13 million in expected cost to finish the build-out for the part that Metro will retain. So in addition to the purchase price, it looks like under both reports supplied to us toward the end of last week, there's maybe $10 million or more to make the building fully usable. With all of these open questions, I mean, this is absolutely, we're approving $44 million of spending, but there's nothing concrete whatsoever about how it's getting paid for. And I appreciate all the hard work, especially Councilmember Stiles has put into the programming yet to come for the facility. But then we get down to like we're just buying real estate, telling citizens, well, we'll figure it out later, how to pay for it, who's going to pay for it, what the costs are, who's going to pay for the build out for the part that Metro retains. And I know channeling the prior occupant of this seat, there's about a 0% chance he would have voted for it when he was in the council. So for now, unfortunately, I'm going to listen, but unless I hear something that changes my mind, I'm going to be a no for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilmember Roten, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was curious, Mr. Jameson, do we have an idea of the square footage? I know we know the square footage over Hickory Hollow Mall, but do we have an idea of the exact square footage or about the exact square footage that Metro plans to occupy this building? Thank you.
The mall itself is about 650,000 square feet, and the Bridgestone building is about 168,000 square feet. We're looking at documents, some of which date back to the 70s, and we're a little less precise, but I would give or take 5,000 on either of those estimates. That's the square footage total.
I'm sorry.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. Again, for entertaining my questions as I'm not on this committee. I do have a couple of questions as I read through the follow-up that we received today. First is the debt per capita. It looks like this is going to cost Nashvillians $4.52. Is that an annual number? And then secondly, and could somebody help me clarify how to explain that number to taxpayers as far as, per person? If it's $4.50 per year, hey, right? That's one thing. If it's $4.52 per month or per tax revenue, percent value, et cetera. The other question I have for the administration is that will we pick up additional property taxes as the result of this? And then can we put together a profit sharing agreement of any sort so that whoever makes the profits on this, Nashville could get a part of that rather than just a flat lease rate or a lease rate plus a part of that? Just, I don't mean to negotiate a whole new deal. These are just some questions that have come to mind as I look through this.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember Benedict. So the materials you got today re-included the letter from Michelle Bosch from March 25th that went through the debt structure. That's an annual cost. Then she compares it to what is the total debt increase, and it's a total debt increase of 0.012%. But that is an annual incurred cost. The tax receipts will, of course, depend upon the uses. To the extent there's a commercial use, then clearly there will be a tax implication. If Metro uses it or a nonprofit uses it, then it's not going to generate a property tax per se.
And can you confirm Vanderbilt's a nonprofit, is that right?
Correct.
And Chair, I just have one more question I'm trying to get to here. In order to delay this, there's a $500,000 penalty is what I understood, but elsewhere in that Q&A, I saw a $250,000 penalty. I guess that's a really round number, so it makes me think that that's not affiliated with any particular direct cost. Can somebody help substantiate what's going to cost, on the other party, not Metro? What does $500,000 cover if this is delayed?
So again, we're stepping into an option agreement that the current option holder owns, the purchase agreement, the purchase and sale agreement. We would be stepping into the option that others hold on that. That deal has a closing date that can be extended up to 2 times at a pop of $250,000 each. So full extension all the way through June, and you're looking at $500,000. So that's one of the reasons for the bit of the time crunch here. We're stepping into those terms. We did not negotiate those ourselves, and that's why I thoroughly, trust me, I understand what it's like to get a volume of material like this, and that is a recurring problem that we just have. At the end of this month, the council will get a budget book that's probably 800 pages, and you know that you have 2 months to address it. And I feel for you, the mayor feels for you, the administration feels for you. We just have charter deadlines that speak to this. On capital spending plans like this, I know it's a lot and a lot to get through quickly, but it's pretty much in keeping with our turnaround on capital spending plans in the past. You did one in December in 35 days. Before that, you did one in 2 weeks. So this is within that. It's a lot, and it's a lot of hard work being a council member, and there's no doubt about what is on your plate. In this instance, not only do we have that cycle to step into, but again, the terms that we're stepping into with the current negotiation, the previous negotiations on the options that we're trying to buy, if that makes sense.
Thank you. And Chair, I thought I had one more. I have one more follow-up, and I just want to say my wife appreciates that you spoke to the workload. I'm good. But so you mentioned, and I think it's more of a statement that, and it said in the document, this is consistent with the timelines. You just mentioned 2 different timelines where we've done things as fast as or faster. I think that just because it's consistent with doesn't necessarily mean it's an acceptable amount of time, especially when we've had potentially weeks and weeks and weeks and potentially months. And then my final ask would be, could we renegotiate, please? And you may or may not be able to answer today, but could we renegotiate that penalty as we assume this contract such that we don't incur such a waste of, $250,000 per 30 days, quarter, I'm guessing per 30, 45 days, something in that range. If we could renegotiate that and give this body a little bit more time, I think that if this does get approved, and I'm supportive of the overall idea, I just have these questions. If this gets approved, we've had more time to vet it out and make sure it's the right thing with, again, $4.52 per year flat. Is that what I understood?
So,
and thank you, and Chair, I'm going to end there. Thank you. And
Mr. Jameson.
And not to belabor the point, but the turnaround time for previous capital spending plans are for capital spending plans exponentially larger than this by a factor of 10 or 12. I get that there's never enough time. I totally hear you, and given the deadlines that we have, both in the charter, the code, and in contracts that we're stepping into, it's just putting a ton of work on council members' plates, and we are greatly appreciative of that. We don't see any other way to proceed. In terms of renegotiating the costs of extending this, keep in mind those were originally negotiated by true private parties that may or may not have any interest whatsoever in coming back to that table and negotiating it and then handing it to us. Getting that done before the terms at the end period expire I don't see any way around that provision. So I hope I've answered your question. I see Councilor Stiles is eager to add to that answer, Chair.
Councilor Stiles, if you let me get Councilmember Ott, and then you can address it together. She can? Okay, all right, sponsor. She said she will let you speak first. Councilmember Stiles.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate everyone's comments, everyone's questions. Trust me, I understand this feels very unique and it feels pressurized. I would like to stress this is for a good cause. As many concerns as you may have, I would ask you to consider what the community benefits from us doing this deal. And the first thing that I'm going to say to you is that we get the things that the community has already expressed that they want. We're talking about green space. We're talking about co-working spaces, nonprofit co-working spaces, activities for youth. Those are things that if Metro owns this facility, we can control. Metro, if Vanderbilt rather wanted to purchase them all on its own, we would have no say. And it would be that the meetings that we had previously meant nothing at all. This vote means a vote not only for the Southeast, again, it is a vote for the entirety of the city. So I would ask that you would vote yes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Ott.
Okay, so thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a couple of things that I want to say in terms of how I recall being on a committee with Dr. David Satcher when he was in negotiations about the merger. And one of the things that he talked about is how this really wasn't an issue for Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt basically does not want patients who are uninsured or underinsured. And that resonated with me then, and it does now. And I served as chair of a community advisory board for Reach 2010 for about 8 years. And the one thing we found out there is the access to health care was the problem. And when you speak of this, to me, it's a double sword, because people in the brown and black communities need access to health care. And I don't think that Vanderbilt is going to serve those who are uninsured and underinsured. We have neighborhood centers that are federally accredited and approved, like Matthew Walker, Neighborhood Health, Nashville General Hospital, that I think will be negatively impacted if this takes place. So my question is what would be the impact, the negative impact on those neighborhood health facilities with this proposal?
Thank you. Mr. Jameson?
Thank you, Councilor Hurt. Vanderbilt University Medical Center is the largest provider of health care for underinsured and uninsured Nashvillians, period, by a large, large margin. There are representatives from Vanderbilt in the back, including Mr. Matt Scanlon, Mr. Mark Carver, that will underscore that. But they have maintained their societal obligations, their duties to Nashvillians in terms of providing free access to health care unequivocally. Unequivocally. They have also partnered with with Meharry in other instances, and I believe have indicated their willingness to continue doing so here. In Council Lady Stiles, I think half-dozen community meetings just dedicated to what are the community needs. Access to health care was significant. And not just access to health care by the immediate surrounding community, but the staff and workers at Vanderbilt Medical Center that have to drive in downtown that now have the option of driving into a more convenient location. In addition to the jobs created, I think it's most important to underscore Vanderbilt's commitment to provision of free health care to those that can't afford it. when you have provision of treatment at Vanderbilt, they, at a baseline, will not assess charges that would exceed those that are provided to insured patients that get them by virtue of collective bargaining, meaning that they have an average deduction rate of nearly 70%, 69 point something percent, which is a pretty remarkable and obviously beneficial figure to frankly be proud of. And it is part and parcel of why we're eager to engage them at this facility, in addition to the reasons that Councilor Stiles, and she has her hand up, to do a better job describing what her community has requested than I do. But I just wanted to make that point.
So, again, my question is, how does it negatively impact those neighborhood health facilities? Now, I understand that Vanderbilt may spend more money, but percentage-wise, I'm sure they don't serve 90% of their patients are the underserved and uninsured and underinsured, as it is with Matthew Walker or Neighborhood Health or Nashville General Hospital. I understand that they may spend more money on uninsured or underinsured, but if you look at the percentages of who they actually serve, I think you will find a disparity there. And I want to know, how is it going to negatively impact those neighborhood facilities?
So in 2020 alone, in terms of the degree, what percentage is involved, Vanderbilt provided $167,754,256 in uncompensated care. So if that service were not available, that would be borne by the other neighborhood facilities to which Nashvillians would have no other place to turn to but Vanderbilt. That is the leading example in Tennessee, not just Nashville, but in Tennessee. So without that asset there, that would have to be taken up by the other providers for uninsured and underinsured care. Specifically, what those entities have expressed in terms of any negative impact, we've not heard any.
TennCare wouldn't take care of that Nashville General may receive, or Matthew Walker would receive? The TennCare that Vanderbilt may not? Speak to that in regards to TennCare, what Nashville General and those other neighborhood facilities receive from TennCare, because they receive those funds from TennCare, whereas Vanderbilt, doesn't utilize them as much as they do private insurance.
I may have to just ask if any Vanderbilt representative can provide that specific information, but I see Mr. Scanlon is rising.
Hey,
Recognize.
good evening. Matt Scanlon, I'm the Director of Government Affairs. I think that question is directed toward what amount of money those other entities receive from TennCare. The only point of that I think I can address is to say that Vanderbilt is actually the largest TennCare provider in the state, and certainly the largest TennCare provider here in Davidson County. So for an exact amount of how much that is, I'm happy to get back with you and give you that number, but I can't address how much those other organizations may get from TennCare.
So again, I guess I don't know if I'm not clear about what I'm asking, but in terms, Vanderbilt is huge. So when you talk about who they serve, how they serve, of course, is going to be larger when you talk about the number and when you talk about the dollar. But in terms of the percentage, based on who they serve and who the others serve, and also, do they take cash? Can someone come with cash and offer and get services from Vanderbilt? I just want to know what the impact is going to be on the smaller neighborhood facilities that provide care for the brown and black communities.
Councilmember Stiles.
Am I on? Okay. Thank you, Chair. if I may address some of what Councilmember Hurt is asking, in our area, we have Siloam Health that is helping many of the individuals in that exact population. And so this is not going to be a detriment. I think there's room for partnership here with Siloam, with our other medical providers. We don't have Matthew Walker out in the Southeast, so this has been an opportunity and will continue to be a bridge for not only individuals that have insurance and can pay, but also for individuals that can't. No one is being left out. We also have another clinic, we have a Meharry clinic in the Southeast that's also serving individuals. So I don't think this is a matter of competition. I think this is an opportunity of collaboration.
Councilmember Mendez. Thank you, Councilmember Stubb.
Thanks. I just wanted to briefly address one point that Mr. Jameson made in response to somebody else. Respectfully, please don't flip the stress of the situation onto us. We'll do the work. We're sitting here at 7:20. The previous committee went, 45 minutes late. The lack of information is not on us. This isn't sure, we've dealt with bigger capital spending plans in terms of dollars, but typically with items in the capital spending plan, we don't get handed reports that say the operating costs could be $7.6 million per year, that it costs $6 to $13 million to finish the build out in one of the buildings, that there's an unknown cost to update and improve the parking, which the reports say is needed, an unknown cost for what the debt service on the Metro retained building is, and unknown lease terms on the other piece of the building. It's just trust us on all the details will work out is a little out of the ordinary for items that we see in a capital spending plan, and that's not on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just add real quickly, I work close to 100 Oaks, and I've seen what having Vanderbilt in that area did in terms of transformation. When my office first got there was one place to go eat, and now there are many, many, many. It has definitely had a vibrant effect on the entire economy of the area around it, which is great. The one thing that I think would be different here is the statements that have been made about Metro owning the property. Is what I'm seeing now happen in 100 Oaks is we've hit that wonderful sweet spot of diversity to now all of a sudden my favorite birdseed place and Monell's have been shut down because they can't afford the rent, because that area's been discovered and is being gentrified. Whereas if we do have some control over some spaces so that we can protect what happens for the areas that are co-working, that provides, I think, a more optimal situation of being able to improve the economy and bring stuff there and yet still be able to provide some ability for Metro to contain what rents are available to the nonprofits and community groups that may want to continue to operate in that. So to me, I understand the concerns about needing more assurance, and if there's someone from Vanderbilt that can address the questions about their intent, or if there's another way to make the letter of intent more certain to us, that seems to be a concern that's been then brought up here. But in terms of the effect on the neighborhood area, I applaud Councilmember Stiles on finding the way to put those two pieces together that will both provide economic activity without gentrifying and displacing the very businesses that we're working to thrive. So if there's anyone that can address the uncertainty on the letter of intent, I would welcome that information.
You're recognized.
Hi, Matt Scanlon again from Vanderbilt. I can certainly address the notion that we are very excited to be out here and talking about going out to the Global Mall. This is a site that needs additional health care, and in fact, during the pandemic, we did a lot of metrics all around Nashville about who was receiving care and who wasn't. And we actually opened a few pop-up clinics out in this area because they weren't getting information about testing, they weren't getting vaccination information. It was one of the commitments that we made to that community. community. It's also one of the things that makes us excited to be out here in the Southeast and have the opportunity to open additional clinics there. And I want to say we're very proud at Vanderbilt of our record for caring for all Nashvillians. We're very proud of the fact that one of our core missions is to take care of all Nashvillians and to make sure that we're providing care all across the city. And so, we are committed to working toward a binding lease agreement with Metro. As we're in the process of doing that now. We've had meetings with them to discuss what the provisions of that are. I don't know that we're going to get to a binding agreement, at least surely until Metro actually owns the property. But we're committed to doing that. And I think expressions of that commitment have been made by our CEO when he stood up at the press conference for this potential arrangement and announced that, in fact, we were going to come out to the Global Crossings Mall. So we're excited to come. We're excited to get this completed, and we thank all of you for your support. Thank you.
If I may ask, I know that there's been conversation about Vanderbilt's commitment to at least having a lease payment that will cover the debt associated with the space. There was a question earlier on about the renovations to the property that is contingent upon your due diligence and that you were going to cover that. So are you committed to, if after looking at it and you find more stuff more than what we have, is Vanderbilt committed to that as well? That was a question asked earlier, and I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes. I mean, I think we are committed to doing the repairs necessary to make this mall working medical space, and we will take care of that end of the transaction for sure.
And the last question from me, in the LOI that I looked at, there is a statement in there about Metro having the option to put a federally qualified health center in some of the space that they occupied. Is that something that Vanderbilt is open to, that would not be seen as a competition?
Oh, no, absolutely not. We wouldn't consider that competition at all. Likewise, we wouldn't necessarily consider it to be competition for some of the other clinics that the councilwoman mentioned earlier to operate in that area. So that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mendez.
Thanks. I appreciate Mr. Scanlon being here, and none of my comments are meant to in any way, shape, or form criticize Vanderbilt or what their goals are, but people speak through documents that they sign, and the letter of intent, and this goes to what's binding and what's not. The letter of intent says, this LOI is non-binding and is subject to the execution and delivery by the parties hereto of a mutually acceptable lease in each party's sole discretion, other than is expressly set forth above, until such time as a definitive lease is mutually created. Neither party shall have any binding obligation or liability in connection with the matters set forth herein. And remember that the LOI has, for rent, it literally says we'll negotiate rent later. For amount of space, it says we'll negotiate. It sets out a target goal and says we'll figure it out later. For parking spaces, it says we'll figure it out later. For right of first refusal, we'll figure it out later. For a purchase option, we'll figure it out later. And so I respect their intentions, but the legal document is as non-binding an LOI as you can have, and Mr. Cross was clear when we were here 2 weeks ago that there's no way we'd have a binding document by now, and that's what the materials that got sent to us say. And so, like, make no mistake, if we vote for it, like the pitch is you really like it as a real estate deal. Like we're in the land business. We're going to have a $44 million asset, and we'll figure it out later. And if that's the policy position, then I respect anybody who votes that way. But don't like right now. There's no commitment. That's what the LOI says. Thank you.
Councilmember Ott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's not competition that I see, but more or less a push out. I recall being at Meharry and having good insurance, but when people had that insurance and could go to Vanderbilt and Baptist, they chose to go there as opposed to going to Nashville General. Or formerly Hubbard Hospital. So if you have a Vanderbilt out there, then the Salome clinics that you have there, they're not going to, it's the Mercedes of the hospitals. There's no competition, it's no choice. So eventually they're not going to be able to necessarily compete, if you will. So it's not that Vanderbilt competes with them, but it's just going to push the small dogs out because they are the big dogs sitting on the hill.
All right, thank you. If there's no further discussion, we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Any abstention? All right, you recommend approval. Thank you all for your patience. We have one more. The vote is 9 in favor, 1 against, 1 abstention. Oh, we lost some people? 7 in favor, 1 no, 1 abstention. All right, here's the last one. RS 2022-1452, and sponsors Allen. A resolution determining to issue general obligation bonds of the Metro Government of Nashville and Davidson County in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $46 million. Do I have a motion? Second? It's moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Oh, hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposition? No. 1 no. Any abstention? All right, you recommend approval. Thank you all. That's the end of our agenda. The Budget and Finance Committee meeting is now adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.
Any non-emergency Metro service. Introducing Hub Nashville, your one-stop shop for Metro Nashville government information and services. For more details, you can visit hub.nashville.gov or call 311 to access Metro services. Download the app today.